Good.
And welcome into Press Box Live, our Monday baseball chat. Stan the fan of Press Box and PressBoxOnline.com. With us, with his face up against the screen, is Luke Jackson, the managing editor of Press Box and PressBoxOnline.com. Just oversaw the newest edition, the print edition, which was released last week. The Long Road Back is the cover story, and Luke Jackson wrote it about what it's like to come back from Tommy John surgery. And with us is the only pitcher I know that never had Tommy John surgery. Nah, I don't think Jim Palmer had it either.
Well, one of them. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very
one of them.
fortunate. They had no surgery on my arm.
Right. And that means he can come back because he hasn't had it yet. So he could probably chuck a few innings. And boy, do the Orioles need it.
About 10 feet, maybe.
Guys, we are brought to you by the Costas Inn. And I stopped by on Friday. I was in the neighborhood of Timonium, stopped in, and Nick and Pete were both there, and they are getting close. They are probably going to open right around the 30th or May the 1st. They want to be open for Kentucky Derby Day, and the place is looking really spiffy. And we wish them great success at the Costas Inn. We'll tell you more about the new Costas Inn and the old Costas Inn during the show, because we are brought to you by the one and only Costas Inn. Now, the two and only Costas Inns will be available. All right, guys, there's not a whole lot to talk about on the Orioles. Yes, the offense has been wildly inconsistent, but I think over the long haul, the offense is going to play well enough that they will produce enough runs to win games. But the starting pitching has just been putrid, to be honest. Tomoyuki Sagano is the only one with a representative ERA of 3.43. Zach Eflin has an ERA of 3, but he's on the IL, so I can't include him right this second. Charlie Morton's ERA is 10.89 with a whip of 2.23. Dean Kramer is 6.41. Cade Povich is 6.38. There doesn't appear to be help in the face of Grayson Rodriguez coming back anytime soon. The only cavalry on the way, and he'll probably be here next week when the Orioles return, and maybe even join the team in Detroit, is Kyle Gibson, whose appearance can't come soon enough in this rotation, Luke.
Boy, that was a whole lot of bad news you just told us, right? I mean, what was good news?
Let me just verify something. Ross, 10.89. That's not good, is it?
You're not going to get a raise with that.
Okay.
You're not going to get
10.89 and perhaps rising, by the way. That went up yesterday. Yeah, not great, Stan. I don't think they've called Ross to provide some innings potentially in DC. I don't think. That hasn't happened yet, has it?
No.
Okay. And that Povich ERA could be higher, but that play in KC was reversed to a Mateo error, if you recall. So that could be higher.
Right.
Yeah, not great. And as Brandon Hyde mentioned, you cannot keep getting the starts they're getting and expect to compete in the big leagues. You just can't.
Ross, and there's an old adage, Ross, that the momentum, and when you're playing funky baseball, and certainly the starting pitching isn't the only problem the club has, but when you are funky, that old adage comes true that your momentum is only as good as tomorrow's starting pitcher. And right now, other than Sagano, and it's not like you go, wow, we got Garrett Cole on the mound or Roger Clemens in his prime. He's Tomoyuki Sagano, who's pitching respectable baseball. But right now, does that filter to the rest of the club where they're not dumb? I mean, they may not be emotional like fans are, but do they say, geez, we don't have a great chance to win today?
I think you always go out there with thinking you have a chance to win. But one of the things that, just watching over the weekend, and I got a chance to watch all those games, and One of the things that stood out, especially with the pitchers that came up, the new guys, once they got their fastball hit, they weren't going to throw it again. And you can't pitch like that. And even Morton, who's got a good breaking ball, he just doesn't have the command yet, or hopefully he'll get it eventually. But he doesn't have fastball command. And I don't care how hard you throw, you got to use your fastball. You got to locate it, and you got to be able to throw an off-speed pitch behind an account for a strike and locate that with sometimes throwing one that looks like a strike to get a guy to chase it. They're just unable to do that. And it was kind of tough to watch the new guys come in, and they relied mostly on breaking balls. They weren't very aggressive. And when they were, they kept the ball out of the zone so they couldn't hit it. And they couldn't even get a swing at it because it wasn't that close. So that was frustrating to watch.
Luke and I were talking the other night, and Luke, I'll pose it to you. Were you, I guess you answered the question when they gave up a pitcher in Scott Blewett, who, I'm not saying he was going to be a world beater, but he certainly would have been better yesterday than Gary Sanchez or Jorge Mateo. But they opted to give him up. They knew they were going to give him up. They ended up dealing him to the Atlanta Braves for cash considerations. But it seemed the obvious move was to send Povich down, and when Young came up, because he's not pitching well. But you alluded to the fact right now he's healthy, and maybe they didn't want to go 10 days being locked into not having it.
Right. I just probably think that they didn't feel like they were in a position where they could option a healthy starter and
Yeah.
lose him potentially for 10 days. Seriously.
That's
I
a
mean,
sad
that's where they
commentary
are.
on
And I actually, Blewett had 2 appearances with the Orioles.
He
I
looked
actually thought he
good.
looked pretty good.
Yeah.
Uh, and I wonder, Ross, if there's will be something done in the next CBA. So the Orioles did the thing where on Friday they had Blewett wear it for like 2 or 3 innings, and then they DFA'd him the next day. I
Yeah.
wonder if in the next CBA, players hate that, and I'm sure teams don't like doing it either.
Really? I
And
mean,
and I wonder if in the next I don't know what you could do. I don't know what consider. I don't know how you could fix that. But it's always that's a slimy thing to do. But it seems like he's going to get an opportunity in Atlanta. Hopefully, he does well for himself.
yeah.
So
No, you see, we've seen that in the past, guys being sent down and with options and stuff, and it's very unfair. I think, especially if a guy throws well and gets sent down, and oh well, we're going to bring you back up. And they tell you this stuff, but yeah,
Cincinnati did the same thing Saturday. They let that guy Spires go
yes,
4+ innings, and
yeah.
he looked great for two and a third. He was gassed, and now he's on the IL.
right.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, they
Yeah.
had him. He was supposed to start
He was
when
supposed to start yesterday.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's why they went. Yeah.
right. So I mean, you got. I tell you, the pitching is thin as it is around baseball with all the injuries. I tell you, guys, they're starting. People are starting to. Old baseball people are starting to go. I know in San Francisco, Randy Wynn, who is talking about these pitchers don't throw enough, and that gets to the point we were talking earlier with Morton. How many innings did he throw in spring training? He threw 6, 7, something like that. That's
Eight,
not enough.
eight great
Eight
Eight
innings.
innings. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not enough.
What
You,
should
you know,
that be, Ross? 17, 18?
well, I mean, it usually goes with pitch count and stuff, but I mean, you got to in 7 innings, you can. I mean, that 7, 8 innings is just not enough. I mean, your last start, you're going to pitch 5 or 6
Right.
usually, but you're getting your pitch count up, and in the first of the season, you're getting your arm strength up as well. But these guys that miss a lot of spring training that are signed late. They rush to get there, and next thing you know, they got a bad lat or whatever the hell it is.
But let me ask you, in the case of Morton, he's 41 years old. They know that when they signed him. I mean, their eyes were wide open. Is the innings level that he pitched in games, because he threw on the side and he threw a
Yeah,
couple simulateds, but is that to sort of protect him are they thinking that way? Why would they only throw him 8 innings in games?
the mindset now, I think of pitching, and the more rest you get, that's like Batista. Batista's the closer, and he pitched, I think, on the 29th and 31st. He's not going to pitch back-to-back days, which everyone knows that right now. But he can't. He went 6 days without pitching. Then he went 4 days without pitching. Then he went 4 days again. I mean, you need to pitch at least. They should have a schedule for him, regardless of it's a save situation or not,
Right.
to get him prepared for the middle end of the season. He's building his arm strength up. But to sit around and throw on the side or whatever for 6 days, that you're not doing him a favor by doing that.
Ross, I turn to you now. Is what ails Charlie Morton? Is it fixable, or is this just father time beating somebody once again? Because Charlie Morton has been a really solid performer, and those numbers, a 2.23 WHIP, 10.89 ERA, 15 walks versus 21 strikeouts. I mean, that's just not Charlie Morton.
Right. I watched him pitch yesterday.
In a couple but
yeah, I watched him pitch a few times. And he's a strike thrower for the most part.
Yep.
He's got a really good curveball. He's able to locate his pitches, but he hadn't been doing that. So first thing you think, is there a problem? Is there a stiff? You have something bothering you? That's the first thing it goes, especially when you're 40 years old, 41 years old. So watching him pitch yesterday, he threw some good pitches at times, but not enough. I think he struck somebody out with a good curveball. He located down in the zone, which was really one of his better curveballs. But he's just very inconsistent. And I don't care how hard you throw, how slow you throw. You have to use your fastball. You have to locate it. You have to mix it up to make your breaking balls effective, and vice versa. And he just he missed the zones by several, not inches. He missed it by a foot or so at times.
So I repeat my question: do you see enough there that it's fixable, or this is a lost cause?
You know what? Like I said, a lot depends on his
Health.
Yes, his health. Is his arm all right? Because usually guys that don't throw hard, that have control problems, first thing you look at, there could be a situation there. Now, can he come back? He's got over 2,000 innings, and that's a lot for a guy now. He's had some good years, but just pitching, he started 5 games, 6 games, something like that. And to see the command and the way he mixes pitches, the way he misses, I'm going, hey, we get to a point after a while, when you're done. And does he think he can pitch? I hopefully so, because he's had some good years. But is he fixable? It's really hard to say at this point in time. It's all a matter of believing in yourself. But can I change what's happened over the last month? And you would hope that it is fixable. They invested a lot of money in him, but it looks like it's been a problem with command, and that's when that happens, you could be on your way out.
Did you have a moment, Ross, where you knew that it was over?
Yes.
What happened?
Earl told them.
Do what? Well, the hitters let you know too that it's time to pack it up. But it became hard to do. It became hard to locate pitches consistently, and it became more of a job and not as much fun. And that's when hey, you need to move on.
Luke, Mike Elias is a brash young executive, not as young as he was 7 years ago, but clearly his philosophy was, I'm going to use draft capital. And in light of how many injuries there are with high draft picks, pitching draft picks, mm-hmm. I don't say he did it wrong the first 2 years, but has he attended to developing pitching? Because if he has attended to developing pitching, the organization has done a lousy job in that regard, in growing their own pitchers. In fact, isn't Brandon Young, who was not drafted, but I think he's the only Orioles signee that has made it to the major leagues to make a start.
Right. So Brandon Young is the first pitcher that was acquired by the Elias regime and developed by the Elias regime
That
to make a
started a game.
start
That's
in
what
a
I was.
major league game.
Yeah,
So, excuse me, for the Orioles. So that doesn't include Kate Povich, who they traded for. That doesn't include Kyle Bradish, who
Kyle
they traded
Bradish.
for.
No,
That doesn't include Gene Kramer, who
right.
the Orioles traded for at this point many moons ago. But let's tease this out a little bit. So in 2019, that was their first draft. They went heavy on the position player side because they already had Grayson Rodriguez, they had
Right.
D.L. Hall, and they had some others like Michael Baumann. And so those pitchers, mixed results to this point. And one of the big
And they had John Means.
Yes, and they had John Means who, and one of the big disappointments of the past couple years is that Grayson just hasn't been on the mound. And it's easy now to forget because he hasn't been on the mound just how important he was to the rebuild. He was
Yep.
just as big to the rebuild as Adley Rutschman, Gunnar Henderson, Jackson Holliday, Colt Kaiser, all these guys. And he just hasn't been on the mound the past couple years. And it's a shame. It's a huge blow to what their plans were. And then
It's
in 20,
especially a blow to what their plans were when plan B or C was never, hey, we'll
right,
develop our own young
right,
pitchers.
right. So then we go on to 2025 round draft because of COVID. They draft Carter Baumler. They give him a lot of money. I
Right.
don't think he made it past Aberdeen. He's just been hurt the whole time.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's had shoulder injuries. He's had elbow injuries. He was a really special arm prior to the injuries. I saw him at Aberdeen a couple years ago. Ball doesn't come out of his hand the same way. Okay. So then we go, and that's when Brandon Young was signed as an undrafted free agent.
Right.
He makes the big leagues a couple days ago. He's an older kid. He's 26, but he made it. It looks like he's going to be an option this year, at least for depth. Um, and then I think, what was it? 21, 22, 23. I mean, it's still jury's still out if any of those pitchers will make it. I think
Well, they gave up the best one of them
yeah,
was
gave
Baumeister.
that was the what I was about to say is that Baumeister, I thought had a real chance to be a major league arm. They drafted him in 23.
He
They
went in
dealt
the
him for
Eflin
Zach
trade.
Eflin.
Yeah.
And so it just hasn't been a huge point of emphasis early in drafts. And the earliest one they drafted was Baumeister,
Yeah.
who I really liked at Aberdeen. They traded him away for Eflin. And I think one of the issues is that I think we thought that they were going to be more aggressive in making the big swing for major league arms. That there would be fewer Cole Irvin and Trevor Rogers type of trades and more Corbin Burns type of trades. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And those big swings really have been few and far between. That the way they built the organization in the rebuild period was always take the long view, okay, and minimize risk all the way around. And they've never really made the switch to making the big swings. So what I would say is a guy like AJ Preller, who we've talked about a lot, Stan, he understands that he needs to make big swings in order to keep up with the Dodgers. He
Yeah.
knows in order to keep up with the Dodgers, he can't play it safe. That's not going to work. That's not going to get it done. And I think Elias is in the same spot where he needs to probably be bolder than he has been in order to keep up in a division when the Yankees and Red Sox are both good. Because
Yeah.
remember, in 23, they got fortunate on a couple fronts. Number one,
Yeah. The Red Sox finished in last place. Yeah.
Red Sox were down, Judge got hurt, and the Orioles stayed totally healthy except for
Yeah.
Bautista at the end of the year.
Yeah.
That's not going to happen every year.
Yeah.
You need to make some bigger swings, and he hasn't been able to do that.
All right.
Well,
I got to make a big.
he's doing what they did in Houston, where
Yeah.
they made the trades, got the free agents pitching wise, and
But they did make big swings in Houston. They traded for
yes, no,
Verlander.
that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Traded for
They
Garrett
haven't done that.
Cole.
They traded for Garrett Cole and they traded for Zach Greinke.
Yes, and that's
And
how
so,
they went. They went trading in free agency,
you
where
know,
the Orioles,
I
and
gotta. I
at
gotta
some point
take
in
a
time
big.
they're gonna have to start rebuilding and concentrate on pitching in the organization if you're not going to go out and sign people. But again, do you have people to instruct these kids in the minor leagues? I don't
I've
know.
I've got to take a swing at the Costas Inn. And boy, are things swinging over in Timonium at the new location at the old OTB out there. And that was booming. The business out there was booming. Costas Inn there, Timonium. The signs are up, the lights are up at night. You're going to start to see them on driving down York Road. There's going to be one on the track with lights. It's going to be wild. There's one on the side. Place looks beautiful inside. Not quite ready to open, but they are. Remember one thing: when the new place opens, they'll have everything on the menu except steamed crabs. Steamed crabs will be the purview of the old location at 4100 North Point Boulevard, and we want to make it clear, don't forget the old location, because a lot of you out there live and die by your steamed crabs during these summer months. And in fact, 12 months a year. Costas Inn, fantastic specials every weeknight, Monday through Friday. Seafood, steaks, pasta dishes, chicken dishes. They got it all there for you at the Costas Inn. And of course, the world famous crab cakes, the crab soup, both the Maryland style, cream of crab, or you can half and half it. Costas Inn. And don't forget, 410-481. I'm blowing the number right now, Luke. Help me. Can you look it up real quick? 410. I'm copping a brain freeze here.
Yeah.
410.
Yeah.
Have it.
Hold on.
Ridiculous.
410 477 1975.
477-1975. 410-477-1975. I haven't forgotten that in about over a year. It's amazing. The Costas Inn. We give it, even though I forgot the phone number, we give it 2 thumbs up a piece times 3. That's 6 thumbs up for the Costas Inn.
You know what that reminds me of, Stan? In
Yeah.
high school, sometimes just randomly, like once a month, I would forget my locker combination, and I would have to make the embarrassing walk into the office and explain that I forgot my locker combination. Like, you got to remind me what it was. That happened like once a month.
You know
Unbelievable.
what? Let me tell you something. The great thing about getting old, and Ross can attest to this, you'll
Oh,
probably remember your locker combination some other time. When you're trying to do something else, you'll remember it now when you
Yeah.
need some other combination. All right, guys, we've got about 5 minutes to go. This team, is it? I hear an awful lot of fans. Get rid of Brandon Hyde. Got to get rid of this guy, that guy. Is this team? Is it as bad as it looks right now on the field?
Well, first of all, anybody who's like saying fire Brandon Hyde as
Yeah.
if he's the reason why their rotation ranks 29th or 30th in every pitching category. I mean, give me
Right.
a break. If you want to
They're
disagree,
29th with a 5.43 ERA, a 1.6 WHIP, and a batting average against 296. They've only struck out 149 batters and walked 80.
well, that's obviously Brandon's fault.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to get on Brandon for, they don't play detailed, buttoned up baseball. Okay. The defense is not as good as it had been in 22, 23 in the first half of 24.
It's not as good as it was in 19 and 20.
That was pretty bad then.
Yeah.
Maybe, I mean, it was pretty bad then. And then the other thing is that walking a lot of hitters, and then it happened with Ramon Urias the other day, the base running mistakes.
Yeah.
Ramon makes 2 base running mistakes in the same sequence where he doesn't get a good read on a ball that Quan dekes him on, and then he gets backpicked at third. It's like that kind of stuff like happens like way more often than it used to. They're not a very buttoned up, detailed team. And if you want to get on Brandon about that, go right ahead. I just don't know why it's his fault that his rotation has completely fallen apart.
Yeah.
Brandon
22,
Young,
20 games into the season.
yeah, like Brandon
Yeah.
Young entered camp as like their number 11 starter.
Right.
Like they're almost like basically tapped out of their depth at this point. They got 141 games to play. I don't know how he's going to keep this bullpen healthy. I really
Now,
don't.
in fairness to Mike Elias, who I've criticized for not working on developing, he did have Chase McDermott. He did have Trevor Rogers. He did have Albert Suarez. None of them are going to help the team this
Right.
year.
Right.
None of
But
them.
I
you
don't know
know, it's
what's
another
going
thing
on with Trevor
you
Rogers.
scratch your head on with all the injuries. I mean, they got rid of the trainer, from last
well,
year.
That was Brian. Yeah, that was Brian
Yeah.
Eagles' fault.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, right. It's his fault, and that's what there's other places you can look for
Right.
these
And
problems.
it's amazing. Like, did we really start this season at not understanding how much their season was going to depend on Grayson Rodriguez and Kyle? Grayson Rodriguez staying healthy, okay, and then number two, Kyle Bradish getting healthy.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
guess we just didn't understand how much their season was going to ride on that, and that's on us. I guess. I guess we
But
should have.
you were hoping for Morton to have a little bit more, at least
To at
on the
least get you
ball.
to the trade deadline, right?
Yeah. And then Eflin, you didn't think he was going to, he would be hurt. And
Although Eflin had two IL stints last year.
yeah, and you got a lot of guys on that starting staff that aren't power guys, and
They
that
do not miss a lot of
obviously,
bats, Ross.
obviously no, yeah, obviously
And
they,
and if you miss bats, that, as you know, gives you a lot more margin for error. And they don't
oh
play with much margin for error because they don't strike anybody out.
well they're second fewest and the 10th most
The,
walks.
the one
So I
bit of
mean,
good, the one bit of good news along those lines, and it's an endemic in the sport, is when I do my power rankings and start ranking teams, I go, well, Jesus, the Red Sox, their starting pitching has been lousy. I mean,
Right.
Tanner Hoke has been awful. Bueller's ERA is over 5. But they've
Stan,
got a couple guys due back, shortly. But the injury problem is an endemic throughout the sport. Now, Texas finally got a first-rate quality start by Jacob DeGrom the other night, and he didn't win the game. I think they lost 1-0, but they finally got a big-time start out of him. But it's all over the sport. The best rotation in baseball right now looks like the Detroit Tigers. They got
yeah,
4 guys with earned run averages in the 2s. Only Reese Olson, who has some good stuff. His ER is 450, but Job, Scooble, Flaherty, and who am I leaving out? Job, Scooble, Flaherty. They got a fourth guy. 4 of their starters are under 3.
you know
So
what's
I think,
crazy is as poor as the pitching is around the game now. And
Yeah.
there are some teams that have some pretty good pitching, but overall, you got 12 major league teams that are hitting under 230. You got over half of them are hitting under 240. So, I mean, there's a lot of problems here. Thing with the O's, if they, I mean, like you said, there's 141 games left, and anything can happen. But I tell you, once if they get double digits down to the leaders in the league, American League East, they're going to have some problems coming back.
By the way, that fourth
series.
starter was Casey Mize.
Oh,
who's
right,
having
right.
by far his best.
That Red series was alarming because that's
Oh,
not a great offensive club. And I mean,
you would have thought they were something else, yeah.
they were shut out in 3 consecutive games earlier this year. And it's not like they have huge offensive numbers, even though they play in a very offense-friendly environment. And I don't know, man. Like, apparently that was like a historic 3-game series in terms of the amount of guys they got on base. I,
Austin Wins is now in the Cincinnati Reds record books.
He got 6 hits.
6
hits
hits.
in a game. I think he and Hayes had like 10 or 11 hits yesterday.
Yeah.
And did you see that
It took Austin a month to get 6 hits, and that's pushing it.
Had a little zinger at the end of the game, Stan?
Nope.
No, I
said
didn't.
that we knew they were flat, and so we took it to them or something like that. And so,
Well,
Yeah.
Austin, and I like Austin Hayes. You'll never really have. Austin Hayes said everything right publicly last year,
Mhm.
but he must have been bitching like crazy behind the scenes for them to have dealt him because
he probably thinks of himself as an everyday player.
Yeah.
And not the short side of a platoon.
and you know what? He's if he would stay healthy, he could
would
be an
be.
everyday
Yeah.
player. Yeah. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this week. Hopefully we can talk about some better things next week. We got the Nationals for 3 in DC. I'm going tomorrow night, sitting in the stands with an old buddy of mine. And Dean Kramer will be pitching tomorrow for the Orioles. And I can't remember who's pitching for the Nats, but he's got a way lower ERA than Dean Kramer's. And then the Orioles play 3 in Detroit, and then they return home for a brief 3-game series against the Kansas City Royals before heading out to Minnesota and then out to Los Angeles to play the Angels.
I wonder. I wonder who will have the advantage in those pitching matchups in Detroit. Got to wonder.
I don't think there's much question about that. Do you think we'll see Gibson in Detroit?
A good question.
He pitched in Aberdeen yesterday.
Yeah,
I think he'd start Saturday in Detroit.
yeah. I think it probably depends on whether they come up with some sort of phantom IL stint for Morton. They've got to sit down with him and try to figure out.
Phantom.
Is 15 days in Sarasota, is that going to help you? I don't know.
All right. That's
Yeah.
going to do it. We thank our friends at the Costas Inn again. Stay tuned for details about the exciting grand opening of the Costas Inn Timonium, which is coming very shortly. That's going to do it for Luke Jackson, Ross Grimsley. I'm Stan the Fan Charles. We appreciate you tuning in to watch us on PressBoxOnline.com.